So Neville Goddard actually never promoted the use of techniques in order to have to get something. He never said that you have to do some certain technique within your day in order to be able to get something. He always made it that you have to have a feeling. And I want to talk about that a little bit more because last Monday I read for my mindset motivation podcast episode I do every Monday. I read a part from Neville Goddard's 1966 lectures, Our Real Beliefs. And I'm going to read it, at least a small part of it here today as well. But what Neville talks about in there is that it's not a technique that manifests. And it's not a technique that you have to do in order to have anything. It's the implication of it. So it's what it's implying for you. What is that creating within your own subconscious for you to say, okay, this is like what I have and this is the way that stuff works for me. Or, this is the person that I am. And so I posted that, and then Tim had reached out and was like, "Holy cow, that really stuck out to me!" And he wanted more kind of info on it. So I sent him the piece of the lecture where Neville says it, and he did a great video talking about how it's not your technique that manifests. And we see this all the time, right? Where people are like, no, you have to script, or no, you have to do vision boards, or no, you have to be within the vortex of the correct vibration. And while I agree with that part of it to an extent, it's not the technique that you're doing to get there, right? Like you don't have to write things 3 times, times three, 6 times a day, or whatever it is. Those techniques are there for you to generate the feeling of having something, for you to increase your faith. Those techniques are just for you. And that's why one thing will work for one person and maybe it doesn't for somebody else. Like I've never really experimented that much with like a robotic affirmation, but I've done like lullaby, which I find a little bit different. And so even Neville, when he would talk about these different ways to do something, I think sometimes people are like, well, you're contradicting yourself on, how I can do something. Like he would say you could use lullaby, but don't like just parrot stuff to yourself. But then later in his lectures and information that he was sharing, it was much more around really all that matters is the feeling. You just have to make the assumption. And he said multiple times that he really got to a point where he would just briefly think of something and then let it go. And this goes now in line with a beautiful, remarkable video that Maggie recently did. And I'll link that down below. And what Maggie talked about was really kind of this interesting theory of, detachment. But detachment in the way that you can want something, but lose this strong, obsessive desire for it. And what this creates then is more the feeling of actually having it. So when a lot of people, like even Richard Dotson, his 955 code, are talking about the relaxation, calming down, finding things that you enjoy, really leaning into enjoying life, it's because if you enjoy life, it implies that you are fulfilled. It implies that you have the things that you want. It implies that you are not only implies that you are a fulfilled person, but actually creates a fulfilled person. So whatever feelings you have internally, that's what you're going to start get mirrored back to you from the world. That's what your brain's going to start to notice. Those are the things that you're going to see when you're out interacting with anybody. And so for me, that was why I started this process of saying, like, add daily joys to your day. Start looking at your habits because there's an implication that's within that. If I don't worry about how I'm going to pay my bills, I wake up in the morning very calm. I wake up actually looking forward to the day because inside I love life. Like I love my life. I love my home. I love the money that's in my bank account. I love the family that I have. I love the friends that I have. And so for me, that feeling continues to generate and it continues to be reflected back to me when I'm out kind of interacting with the world, right? And Maggie put it great where she was like, it's not that reality has like nothing to offer. There's a beautiful thing here, but there's a slight difference between wanting something and putting so much effort into trying to obtain this external thing because you feel like I have to have this thing in order to have this feeling. So until I get this thing or this person or this amount of money, I can't actually get that feeling. I have to have the external for it. And the more that you learn to start with the feeling first, truly, the more that the external stuff just starts to fall into place. Once you have a desire, that means that's exists for you. That's out there. You wouldn't desire something that didn't actually have a planned execution for you to receive that thing. And it at that moment, like bam, you can have that desire and just know this is for me. I wouldn't have this desire otherwise. And this exists for me on some sort of plane. And if it's something you don't want and you have like the quote unquote desire, feeling, belief, then just replace it with something you do want. That's why you learn how to focus on this desired outcome, this thing that you want to actually have come into your life, the type of person that you want to be. And so, Maggie's video was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. I've probably watched it like 8 times so far because I just thought it was very well put and it was very easy to follow. And sometimes, though, what happens is that you get this information, it's like, okay, well, how? Like, I maybe logically and intellectually understand this is what I need to do. This is the detachment, the letting go, whatever you want to call it. But how? Like, I so badly still want this thing. And the more badly that I want it, the more that I'm reflecting I don't have it. And oh, what a frustrating cycle, right? Like, I know I've been in that frustrating cycle where I'm like, but I want it. What do you mean I can't want it? Like, it doesn't really make sense. And how do I get to that point? And that's why I believe, and I've seen in my own life, getting to that point is by releasing this chokehold that it has on you by replacing it with different habits and routines. Sorry if you can hear my dog grumbling in the background. He's so funny and he's snoring very loudly. He's a very happy pup in front of our fireplace today. Um, but so when you are able to say, okay, here's my desired outcome, I'm going to relax into really loving life. Because if I had this desired outcome, I would love life. I would enjoy my days. I would do things that were good for me. And what actually sometimes ends up happening, and I've seen this time and time again, is that people put so much effort into that thing that they miss the other parts of life that's really good. They miss doing things for themselves. And that's what it means for like self concept and self love and taking care of yourself. And I know those are like very overused terms, especially within this type of community. But when you're able to say, I'm doing these things just for me, my internal feelings, the way that I am treating myself because I love me and I love life and I have these beautiful things that I get to experience and learn from, then the implication is that you already have this other stuff. I'm not sure if I'm making sense. So let me know if I'm not making sense because I want to make sure that I'm being very clear. But I'm going to read from the piece of Neville Goddard's lecture. So it is from the 1966 lecture series. I bought it on Amazon. I'll put the link down below. I don't even remember how much I bought it for. I have it on my Kindle, but it's I Am is the Way. It's my favorite group of lectures. Like some of my favorite lectures actually come out of this book. It's so phenomenal. But so I'm going to read this part that kind of stemmed the conversation between Tim and I regarding, the techniques that you quote unquote need to use. It's when you actually withdraw from the outer world and go within, and then get nearer and nearer to the wish fulfilled. Well, I have to get nearer and nearer to the wish fulfilled. So I assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and give it all sensory vividness, all the tones of reality, everything that would be were it true. So I'm hearing his voice. I hear, and now what is he saying? What does it mean? What does it imply? It implies that I have it. Well, then it awakens in her the reaction of having it. Believe that you have received it. It produces that feeling of having received it. That's the end of the prayer. Whatever you desire when you pray, believe that you have received it. Well, how do you persuade yourself that I have received what at the moment reason is denying and my senses deny? I use all this technique, and the technique is all figurative, has no power whatsoever. It is what it is implying. So I think this is like kind of the big key here, right? Is that it's what it is implying. So if scripting does that for you, if vision boards do that for you, if you prefer to go into a meditative state, all that it comes down to though is the implication, right? And the more that you're able to relax into this knowing and just enjoy life and create feelings of thankfulness and gratitude, and those are the things then that you start to see um, have real change in your life. So I do recommend you listen to Maggie's video. It was really phenomenal. I just found it so insightful, and she always puts things in such like a beautiful way that I find really easy to follow. But then consider the fact that, okay, if I'm going to relax into this feeling of having it, if I actually had this, what would be some of the habits during my day that would imply that I had it? So, and I use the example of like paying your bills. If I paid all my bills, well, then I wouldn't be panicked in the morning. I wouldn't wake up in like a panic and frustrated and like being struggling with everything that was going on. I would be calm. I would enjoy my morning. So, really start to consider that and start to look at your daily habits.